at Jeddah is a fairly new race, having staged the first Grand Prix in 2021. That race was won by Lewis Hamilton, but Max Verstappen would win a thrilling race last year, finishing less than a second ahead of Charles Leclerc. The track is 6.1 kilometers long, which is 3.8 miles, and the race takes place over 50 laps of the demanding 27-corner circuit. It's labelled as the fastest street circuit on the Formula One calendar, consisting mostly of fast corners and only 2 real traction zones to start and end the lap. For this weekend, Pirelli have chosen to bring the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, so they are at the softer end of the tyres available. We may have only had 2 races here so far, but they have been good ones, with the first being a decisive race in the title fight in 2021, with Max and Lewis almost coming together at turn 1, before eventually making contact at turn 27, right at the end of the DRS zone, when apparently there were some confusing things going on. It was a pretty crazy race with multiple incidents. Then in 2022, there was also an epic game of chicken between Max and Charles, trying to hit the detection point for the start-finish straight DRS. They've moved that DRS detection point around the final corner for this year as well. It's an incredibly difficult circuit with lots of blind corners, as Ocon found out to his own cost in the 2022 qualifying when he came across a slow Daniel Ricciardo in turn 7. It's also a place where you can have big accidents, and sadly for Mick Schumacher, he's had 2 big shunts in as many years, with this one at turn 9 being a particularly big hit last year. I mentioned this earlier, but the last corner is also incredibly important, as it's one of the 2 real traction zones on the track. Max Verstappen was on for an absolute blinding lap in 2021 when he went a little bit too deep into the final corner, and sadly that can be the difference between an incredible lap and one that ends with you out of qualifying. We should probably also mention the safety changes that they've been making to the track for 2023. We saw a few small changes last year, but this year they are pushing the walls way further out on numerous corners to help improve visibility. There are a lot of blind corners at Jeddah, and this is just a step to make it easier for the drivers to see what's around the corner. So what can we expect from the race? Well, let's start with Mercedes. Toto Wolff doesn't expect Mercedes to be making a huge leap, but he does think they'll be a little bit more competitive compared to Bahrain. Before the upcoming race, he said, "The last time I dreamt about miracles was a long time ago. That track, Sakir, is very rear limited. It has a very abrasive asphalt, and that is probably the weakest point in our car. If you look at it from that perspective, maybe it gets better in Saudi. I certainly think when it comes down to a front limited track, we will have much better pace." Mercedes are also bringing some small upgrades to Jeddah, but these are ones that have been in the works for some time, so don't expect all that much. Some tweaks to the floor are possible, but a big update isn't due until around Imola, assuming of course they still go ahead with it. Lewis struggled here last year when they were testing things on the car, so he will be hoping for a better race this time around. So what about Ferrari? Well, Ferrari also think they'll be better at Jeddah than in Bahrain. At Bahrain, they felt they went the wrong way with the setup, which is odd considering the amount of testing they had at the track before the race weekend. But either way, they think their tyre deg was worse than it will be at other tracks. Plus, the Bahrain track is quite abrasive and Jeddah is a lot smoother. Jock Clear said, "Fast corners are particularly good for our car. Short and sweet, but Jeddah is a very fast track, so that could be good for Ferrari. We all hope so, as Red Bull needs a challenger." We also now know that Charles Leclerc is going to take a 10-place grid penalty for this race. Ouch. Speaking of Red Bull, I'm expecting more of the same. Testing seems to suggest that the Red Bull will be a good car at slower circuits and just as good at faster circuits, so I'm expecting it to be leading the charge, but I am anticipating it to be much less of a gap to the cars behind. No updates are expected for the Red Bull at Jeddah, not that it needs any, but they are bringing some upgrades to Melbourne, which is the race after. Will Aston Martin still be the second fastest car? All the signs point to yes. Just like Mercedes and Ferrari, Aston Martin expect Jeddah to suit their car a little bit more than Bahrain. They had to use a higher downforce setup in Bahrain to nurse the tyres a little bit more, which is something they won't have to do at Jeddah. In theory, they should be in better shape, so Fernando Alonso might be in line for another podium. I just wanted to touch on McLaren really quick as well. Despite having a nightmare race at Bahrain with a lot of issues for both cars, I do think Lando's race pace was pretty good at the end of the race, so perhaps McLaren will be expecting to see an improvement at Jeddah. They have a big upgrade package coming to their car in the first 5 or so races, and so the car isn't quite where it wants to be, but I do expect a better showing at Jeddah. So there we have it, a quick to-the-point preview for the upcoming Jeddah race. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe as it really does help. And there will be lots more content coming, not just during this race weekend, but also over the whole season. I'll catch you next time.